Right, one of the biggest talking points from this window is, of course, the activity at Nottingham Forest. 21 players have arrived at the City Ground, and somehow we've managed to fit them all on one page. So let's just show you all the players. My first question to you, Darren, is how long is it going to take to get through all the initiation songs?
At least 3 away trips, I'd say. Yeah, it'll be a great one. But look,
what do you make of this business?
You can't win really if you're coming up as a new sign. I think they're the third club, correct me if I'm wrong, Dharmesh or Kaveh, the newly promoted side to spend over 100 million. I think Fulham and maybe one other recently, maybe Aston Villa. So they're having a go. Now, when I say you can't win, because everyone's saying they shouldn't be signing all these players because it takes a long time to adapt. But then if you don't sign players, you're accused of not trying to stay in the division, or if you're signing the wrong type of player, which potentially Norwich kind of done last season, they went down, you're signing the wrong player. So they can't be accused of not having a go. They're signing good players, but they need to get it right, because if they don't get it right and they end up getting relegated this season, I mean, they've got a huge wage bill.
I think a lot of this is necessity as well. If you go back to the Championship playoff final, close to half of that team were loan players. So they had to go back to their clubs. And if you think about what the manager was thinking when he picked that team for the Championship playoff final, one of the biggest games in their history, he decided that 11, that included nearly half of loan players, was the strongest team. So what does that say about the people who are on the bench? If they're not good enough to play in a Championship playoff final, you could argue, are they good enough to play in the Premier League? So suddenly you've got almost a whole team to try and replace, because there's so many people leaving. And add to that, the likes of Lewis Grabban, the captain, he was out of contract. Brice Samba, the goalkeeper, wanted to go back to France. And so a lot of this was out of necessity. And I've seen one report today that as many as 22 players left. So why not bring in 21 players? It could be 22 soon, because Serge Aurier still hasn't been announced, but we think that one is very close. But what it does show as well is the owner, Evangelos Marinakis, at the end of that Championship final, made a point. We are here to make a point. We're not here to make up the numbers. We are going to be ambitious, and we're going to back the manager. And they've all gone into this together, all on the same page. Every single signing has been discussed between the owner, the owner's son, Miltiadis Marinakis, and Steve Cooper, and that's how they've decided to do their business. And as Darren says, if it works, then everyone will look back on this and said, you know what, masterstroke.
How does Steve Cooper make it work?
This is where Steve Cooper earns his money as a manager. I was just going to jump in there. I think he is a fantastic manager. We know that. So he has to make this work, and he'll earn his money because he has to adapt them all, because you're going to have players from the 21 signing not even in the squad, in the matchday squad. So they've come to a new club. They're not even making the squad, which is incredible. But it's also down to the players. They need to show Steve Cooper why they've been brought to the club. They're good enough for the Premier League. They're good enough for that starting 11 or the bench. I think it's healthy competition for Nottingham Forest. And like I said, if it works, then the future's going to be bright, because as you said, Dharmesh, he's backing, the owners are backing the manager. So if they stay in the Premier League, which should be their sole aim, is 17th and above. That's all. If they do that and they build on that, you know, it's exciting times for a huge club that Nottingham Forest is.
I mean, I accept what Dharmesh and Darren are saying, but we do have to admit it's something extraordinary what Nottingham Forest have done. It's a record to sign so many players in a summer transfer window. And Nottingham Forest, I think, have spent about £133 million this summer. That is more than Barcelona. That is more than PSG. That is more than Manchester City. That is more than Bayern Munich. And I think we've seen different approaches from the 3 teams who were promoted. I think Bournemouth have spent about £20 million. Fulham, I think, spent around £50 million. Forest obviously felt like they needed to spend more and they needed to bring more players in. That is why they've spent £133 million. I know you can make a great case for the fact that they needed to do that, but you also have to accept that especially people from Europe and some of the big clubs in Europe are thinking, look, wow, what a situation we're in now, what a disadvantage we're in to the Premier League when clubs like Nottingham Forest, who, don't get me wrong, they've had a fantastic history in the past as well, but they can just come into the Premier League now and straight away spend more than Barcelona, PSG, Manchester City, Bayern Munich, Juventus.
I don't think you'll be seeing that again. You won't be seeing 21 players in January and 21 players next summer. Like you said, Dharmesh, it was a necessity to bring these players in. You mentioned the clubs you've mentioned. They don't need that many players, so they need one or two. And if you pro-rata it, those clubs are probably spending more in terms of quality, how much they're spending on individual players. He's brought in 21 players to build a squad and the foundations of a good Premier League squad. If they get that right, January you'll see 3 or 4 maybe top signings, and next summer probably similar. You'll never see surely you're not going to see 21 signings again.